Hey y'all, I just want to let you know that we have a Patreon channel. That's right. If you did not know, we are on Patreon. Our Patreon is $8.99 a month, where you can come and watch all of our visual elements to our podcast show. So all you have to do is click the link in our description box and it will take you right there. It's only $8.99 a month. Make sure you go and subscribe. Bye. Welcome back to another episode of the Hella Chisme Podcast. My name is Dana.
And I'm Stephanie.
And we are reporting live. Well, I'm reporting live from gay Disneyland, honey. And welcome back to another episode of the Hella Chisme Podcast. My name is Dana, and we are your host. Yes, as you can I think you can see and/or tell that we are on a new platform. We have officially decided to use Riverside, which is going to be a learning space for us. So I don't know if you as the viewers can tell, but I know that us as the users can tell the difference. But, you know, we will just see how things go. I've heard really good things about it, and I can tell the difference right now from using it, of just like how clear and how good everything looks. So I'm kind of liking it already, but we'll see.
Yeah, I can definitely tell with the camera quality, like immediately. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And that was one of the things that Mike was telling us. He was like, you know, it's just really good camera quality. It makes the pictures look really clear. I'm really obsessed with how the backgrounds look right now. Like, I really love that. Mm-hmm. So I'm hoping that with our new one that we created, not the one that we're using right now. This is a stock one. We actually have one created.
Yeah.
It looks just as good with, you know, how they have everything set up on the platform. Yeah. But happy Monday.
Yes, happy Monday.
We are recording officially on MLK Day, which, if you are not living under a rock, you know that it is also day of inauguration, that the man is being sworn into office on this here day, on Martin Luther King Jr.'s day of recognition and day of celebration. How are we feeling? How are we doing? Let's just get into it.
First of all, the irony of that is crazy.
Mm-hmm.
That his inauguration was on this day, but I'm feeling about the inauguration itself and it happening it's a little nerve-wracking, honestly, like just because it's so weird to me how TikTok was shut down and then all of a sudden it was brought back up, and all over it was like, thanks to our president, and he wasn't even technically our president at the time. And then now a lot of things on it are very filtered. I don't know if you've noticed, like there's no live option. You can't go live on TikTok in the United States anymore. And they're saying, you know, there's a lot of marches happening, protests, and people are unable to live stream these things, which so happened, you know, right for the day of inauguration, which is crazy. I don't know. I don't know how to feel. I feel, you know, like my hands are tied.
I mean, right? Your hands aren't tied. I think you're just at the point you don't have any. We don't have any real control over what's happening or what's going on. You know, I think 100%. So I just looked at. You can still. I've been seeing people going live. I think when it first got turned back on, you could not go live for sure, but now you can.
Really?
Yes.
As of when?
I
Today?
see it. I was looking at it right now.
on top. So on this top here, I don't know what video this is, but if you look up here, there's no live option.
Oh, you can't click on lives.
And you can't, so you can't go live. You can. There's no like live for you page. Yes, you can go live. You're right, but there's no like. Remember before there was like
Specific.
a live, like you can go through people's lives. You have to search. I don't know. I think they just updated that.
Well, so what I was going to say was that, some people are saying that they were updating their servers during the time. Here's the thing. I think that they knew that this was going to shut down. They were planning for that, but then it also gave them the opportunity to do some updates because I think they knew immediately that they were going to be brought back up because they knew Trump was going to be kind of the savior of TikTok moving forward.
Even though he signed to ban it.
Even though he's the one who started to sign to ban it, which is beyond, the funny part to me is that I don't think people realize or don't read enough to understand that that's exactly what was happening. But I'm like, this man is literally putting himself in a space to be the savior of something that he was talking about banning in the first place.
It's called gaslighting, guys. Google it.
Yeah. The same thing your man is doing to you right now, girl. You letting another man in office do it to you. Oh, I hate that for you in 2025.
Yeah, it's crazy, but...
Yeah. What can we do? This is where we're at. One of my colleagues sent me a article because there's been a conversation that he has 100 brand new executive orders that are going to go into office sign off on day one, which is today. And the beginning of the article says, President Trump on Monday plans to sign executive orders proclaiming that the U.S. government will recognize only two sexes, so male and female, and ending radical and wasteful diversity, equity, and inclusion programs inside federal agencies, according to senior White House officials. Which I'm like, it's frustrating. Especially being someone who works in DEI, it's like, I don't think people understand what it means when we talk about diversity, equity, inclusion. And then in the way it's being taken out of context or in this form, taking it out of federal agencies or not. I think Amazon has now taken it out of, I can't remember the language, but has taken it out of the work that they're doing when it comes to their workers. And I just be like, people be so stupid. But again, this is where we're at.
I think for me, one of the things that is standing out is like the mass deportations and like the way they did it last time he was in office. I feel like it's gonna be like that, but on steroids. Where they were just like breaking up literally like children from their parents and, just families and stuff. And I understand, right? Because, I have family members that either came in one way or another and have gone through the process, others that didn't. And either way, I think that it's very inhumane to separate children and from their parents and family and stuff. And that is for me the scary part, because I know the fear in Latinos, a lot of Latinos or immigrants that they have with Border Patrol agents and ICE and how they detain them, and it's the way they detain them and the quality in which they detain them when they're in those facilities is just very inhumane. And all of that is just super, like, I don't know, scary.
It is scary.
Like, you wonder if there's going to be like these, refugee style camps because,
absolutely.
That's it. Something like that happened last time he was in office, didn't it? Like some sort of camp or like, I don't know, something. I don't know.
I mean, I tried to block it out of my mind, so I can't think of exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly what, but
it's just the kids.
I want something so much different for us, and this new world we're going into. Not to get all woo-woo, but I know you love this, but this is like, people are saying that we're going into the new world. Like, this is going to be the new age of the United States that we're headed into. And this is when people were talking about how we were going to turn into, what's that show that was on, was it Amazon Prime? The Handmaid's Tale, and ultra religious America, and kind of trying to eliminate the Black and people of color, different types of races in America, and you all voted this into office. Anyway, on another note, how has your weekend been so far? What's been going on?
My weekend, it was pretty good. It was busy. My niece had a birthday party yesterday, and it was like at 9 in the morning. So I was giving my cousin a hard time. I'm like, now you're having a birthday party at sunrise on a Sunday.
Where was it at?
At their house. They made like breakfast and stuff.
A little brunch party.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, it was cute. And then the day before, Saturday, what did I do? I visited my dad and just see how he's doing and everything. And then I went to the gym. And Friday, what did I do Friday? Friday, my son had a practice with a professional baseball player from Yucatan, Mexico. Okay. He was here and he did like meet and greets with the kids, and then he had like a small group of selected kids, and then he did like hitting lessons with them and stuff. So he got to meet him and take pictures and stuff. Cute. So that was cute.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. That's cute. Also, the weather has not been amazing this past weekend.
It's been so cold.
Yes. It was warm last night, but it has been freezing.
We have a cold wave coming in too, right?
That's what they keep saying, but when I told you the other day, I looked at it. I didn't really see much of a difference.
Look for next week.
I'm sorry. Okay, so starting after Friday, that Saturday, it is going to be cold. The lows are in the 40s and the highs are in the 60s and 50s. So that makes sense.
Yeah, like where I'm at, my highs are going to be like 56.
Yeah, okay.
And I'm like, what?
That makes sense. And you know what's been going on with our heat. So our heat has essentially been blowing out cold air. So
I didn't know.
That's why I asked you. And so since Christmas, I guess, is when it started, and we weren't here for Christmas, and then we were here. And when it happened while we were here, we put a new filter in there in the little AC system. And so after that, it was working fine. But then as the last couple of days, it had been blowing out cold air. And so then we had somebody come out, and that person didn't find anything. And then when we had BD come, he went up and he looked, and then he was like, well, there's a couple of things I'm thinking. So we're thinking we're going to have to update our thermostat. So we need to buy a new thermostat. And then he's thinking that after that, we should change and update how our gas line is to the furnace. Mind you, I just finished my bathroom.
I was gonna
the day we finished our bathroom, our sink started to leak and started shooting. So the sink started to back
in the
up
new one?
into the sink. No, in the kitchen.
Oh my!
The sink started to back up into the sink, and so there was all kind of water and shit in the sink for hella long. So then we had another friend come over and look at the sink, so he fixed it. The next morning, the water is shooting out of the cabinet from the bottom of the sink because the faucet is also leaking. So we had to replace our sink this weekend. So it's been all kind of shit going on as far as like home improvement things. Like I'm like, we said we just needed our bathroom fixed. We didn't need for our house to read us and let us know everything needs to be fixed and replaced. Like, girl.
So, but the gas line to the furnace, it shouldn't be too big of a
No,
right? And the
He's essentially,
thermostat, he can get you like a nice one, like a
well, I'm gonna
electric.
order one off of Amy
Oh, okay.
and get one there and have him install it. I'm probably gonna get a Nest, the little
That's what
round
I
digital
have.
things. And then I'm gonna get a Nest and then do that. And then essentially what he's saying for the gas line is just he's gonna kind of put something new in to because he said it's supposed to be a T, and it's like, I don't know what it looks like up there, to be honest, but he said it's supposed to be a T, but we should replace it because that's not what it is. That's not how it's set up currently. Essentially,
was it someone like a professional company that did it?
That installed it, yeah, as far as I know. I don't know how long Paris has had it in there, but I know it was a professional company that did install it and did do it. So
it's so hard when you have, it's like bittersweet being a homeowner, like, yeah, because it's not like an apartment where you can like call and be like, hey, water's leaking, or hey, the thing is backed up. Like, you have to figure it out, or you have to pay the whole thing out of pocket,
Yeah. No, yeah.
Yeah.
So there's that. So we'll see how that goes.
It'll work out.
So yes. But so this episode, we are going to be going through or having a really good conversation. I think well, I don't know that we've mentioned, but since being back, Stephanie and I both have been rewatching Sex and the City. So today's episode is kind of inspired around Sex and the City. We will at some point come back and do kind of like a whole recap because this is Stephanie's first time watching Sex and the City. But that will happen at a later date. But we'll take a break and then we will come back and get into this week's conversation. Bye.
Hey guys, just wanted to come on here and remind you that we still are on Patreon. And if you would like to see all of the visual content and for future, present, and past episodes, then you would want to subscribe to that. It's about $8 a month. But for real life updates and behind the scenes clips and, updates, surveys, polls, make sure you are following us on Instagram at Hella Chisme Pod and YouTube, Hella Chisme Podcast. We do lives and other, events and stuff like that you want to definitely be part of. So go ahead and follow us on there and stream us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, or whatever podcast streaming service you prefer. And thank you guys for tuning in.
And we are back. So this week is going to be an interesting episode. As I mentioned, we have been watching Sex and the City. And really what triggered this thought and idea for this episode was the episode of the show where we all know that Samantha is a employee relations PR.
Public relations?
Public relations.
Okay.
Public relations professional, and she owns her own public relations business, right? So I was watching the episode where this little 13-year-old girl ends up booking her to be her PR person for her bar mitzvah that was coming up. And essentially this little girl was just, cursing, talking about her boyfriend, talking about how sex is so important and her teenage friends. Specifically the scene in the episode where these girls see Samantha and Carrie and Miranda and Charlotte at a restaurant and walk up to them and their cell phones start going off. And then the girls talking about how Carrie is so fucking fabulous and she loves her column and all the things. And so it just triggered a thought for me thinking about when I was a teenager and just how bad wanting to grow up and be grown and be an adult, mostly so I can get out there and, party in the streets, but also because I've never been good with authority and I hate it when, people telling me what to do. So I wanted to get to a space to where I was, in charge of all the things that I wanted to do. And then now being an adult and looking back on that, like, I wish I was a child again, so then I didn't have all the responsibilities. So I kind of wanted to have that conversation of, what was it about being an adult that was appealing to us? And then now, focusing a lot on, things that are nostalgic and the social expectations of us now being adults. And then also just like about how culture shapes the perception of who we are in the different age groups that we fall in. And yeah, just there. But to start, just what are your immediate thoughts, like, before we take a deep dive?
Like when I first saw that, it was like, yeah, like I remember same thing. Like I didn't do well with like authority either. And I think just wanting to like be out and like, be able to party or be with my friends or just like, run my own life, I guess, and do things my way or quote unquote like better, because you think you can do it better and everything like that. So
yeah, I mean, and then also, thinking about the fact that you have kids. I mean, and at some point, well, I feel like now they're already at that point to where they're like,
my son
Junior has a cell phone. And, like Amaya is walking around her little princess heels. It's like, I'm just thinking about the littlest things, right? Like all of that at some point as you become an adult becomes a bigger things for you as you get more into your adulthood.
Yeah. It's scary.
So
when you think of it like that, like your own kids, you're like, oh my God.
But it's very, very scary. So thinking about when you were a kid, what did adulthood mean to you as a kid? Like, what did it look like for you? And what did you think it was?
Okay, like my child idea. I would say like my child idea of adulthood is like you go to this job and you have a cool job and you have cool outfits to your cool job and you just go and are like sitting there typing some shit and that you have your own house and you just pay your house and like your cool car and you can go and do whatever you want whenever you want. That was my idea of adulthood.
So like jobs and cool cars and stuff like that.
Yeah, and like my own space, my own house, and like I can go out and travel with my friends and party with my friends whenever I want.
Yeah.
That was my idea.
Yeah. I mean, I get so work wasn't always at the front of my mind, which I guess knowing if you like knowing me probably would make sense because I'm always just like, girl, I'm like, I never considered as a kid, just like I would say maybe not until like 12, 13, where I considered adulthood and being able to do all the things you wanted to do became a thing because you had to work for the money and had to work to be able to do all the things that we were doing. Never considered that, never really gave a fuck. I just was like, I want when I want it now.
Right.
So it was when I got older, obviously, that I understood that, oh, you have to work for everything that you get, which, okay, now, obviously, right? But I think for me, I always look at like homes and being in a space of, grandeur and having like a nice house that had all the things in it and furniture nicely furnished. I've never ever been a real car person, even though some of my siblings and people around me were all car people. I looked at adulthood in the space of, okay, as an adult, I can have my own home. I can have a nice home. I could decorate it how I want, and clothes and shoes. And, those are the things I looked at the most. And then also, obviously, independence, right? I wanted the independence. I wanted to be able to make my own decisions, do whatever I wanted to do. And then also have whatever career path that I wanted to choose, which would, move me into all of the things that I mentioned, like, homes and shoes and fashion and all that stuff.
Homes
So
for
that's
me was a
interesting.
thing too. Yeah, like your house, like decorate your house how you want. I was always like, 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 oh, I want to be like a mom and like, stuff like that. And now I'm like, these kids. No, just kidding.
I mean,
No, but it's just crazy. Like your mind is so innocent at that age, so you paint this image of like what you think, based on like what you see, what's instilled in you, like your own experiences with your parents or, family examples you pick up on and stuff like that.
100%. And I think that, we as kids, we would watch our parents and see those things would always stand out to us the most. But then when we talk about the things that happened in our childhood, in our households, like the negative and the scary things or the bad things, sometimes we're good with blocking that out or sometimes we're not. We also hold on to those pieces too. I think that the reality of the glamorous or the independence was that, my parents worked hard for everything that they have and or had. And it was not always easy because I can specifically remember the number of nights my dad would work overtime or the number of days that my mom was doing doubles, working from the morning to the evening. And then, me growing up and doing the exact same things to where I'm like, well, my job asks me if I can stay longer, so I'm going to stay, or I'm working overnight tonight because if I work this 6th day, I'm getting double time. So it's like all of those things, as you become an adult, you start to realize, fuck, I wanted to be this adult so bad, but baby, look at what I'm gonna do to be this adult.
I know. I also, like my dad, he's always driven trucks, like all the men, a lot of the majority of the men in my family always drove trucks. And my dad would take me to the yards, like where they park the trucks and all that stuff. Or my dad would have to leave for a couple of days at a time. My mom, always working. Like everyone in my family, Mexicans always so,
keep a job, honey.
So,
like Kiki Palmer.
That was always like instilled in me as well. And yeah.
I mean, but it's good though, right? Like, I think for me now, I often talk about, it's great that, my husband and I both have a career. And I know he's older than me, but I know that there will never be a point where I'm not working, because I actually enjoy working. I enjoy keeping busy. I enjoy doing projects. I enjoy, working on new things. I love to do that. It's just, I just enjoy doing it. And that's just always been a thing. I think also just thinking about, the times that we grew up in and how movies and music videos and magazines, also influenced how we saw adulthood and how we saw just being in the world. And thinking of just like kind of that nostalgia, what were like some movies for you that was like, oh my God, I want to be this person when I grow up? Movies, and it doesn't have to be movies like TV shows and like, artists and stuff like that.
I was always like a fan of like I liked Sandra Bullock, like in her movies and stuff growing up. Like Miss Congeniality was like a cool movie. And
okay, so not Pretty Woman. You did not want to be a prostitute.
No,
Got it.
Now that I'm older, I like that movie. But yeah, like just Sandra Bullock, and then like I'm trying to think like women examples.
Mm-hmm.
It's because younger too, like I would watch novelas and stuff. And so maybe
Mm-hmm.
that's why I'm like dramatic sometimes. No.
Mm-hmm.
But so I feel like it was like different parts because my aunt played like a huge role in that for me, I think, because she was very like homemaker, like
Mm-hmm.
always would like have her own business, whether it was like a bridal shop or like selling her own like bakery products, and cleaning her house clean and cute. Like she was always like a super big like someone that inspired me, or that I looked up to.
Mm-hmm.
What other movies? I don't know. It's because back then it was like a lot of cartoon stuff. I feel like
What were some of your favorite cartoons?
I used to watch like Lizzie McGuire, and then like Ginger. Remember Ginger? That was a
Mm-hmm.
cute one. Um, I used to like Rocket Power was pretty cool.
Mm-hmm. I love Rocket Power.
Rocket Power was cool. And Hey Arnold.
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
feel like those were like a lot of what I watched.
I mean, but even still, like those kids were super independent. A
They
good portion of them,
were.
like, they caught the bus, they walked to school. Rocket Power was all about skateboarding, right? That was,
Yeah.
and so he rode his skateboard to school every day. So I think it's also just like, even just thinking about cartoons and like the shows, those type of shows, I think it also showed a different perspective of what, our parents were doing for us as kids. Me and Martel did not start riding the bike to school and or walking to school until we got into high school.
Yeah, same.
And so, for a minute, it really was just like my parents was like, we can't, we'll drop you off wherever you gotta go. It wasn't until it really was hard for them to, because at one point we lived in Oakland or lived in Concord and was going to school in San Leandro or Concord or vice versa, right? So it was like physically impossible for them to get us to school unless we got there on our own. I mean, and then, or it was just super dangerous for us to like walk or for us to get on the bus, or Martel was just like, I'm not getting on the bus. And I was the same way. I was like, the fuck you mean get on the bus? I'm not doing that shit. That shit's ghetto.
Yeah, I never rode the bus. And then like when I was in high school, my dad like he sold cars for a while, and so or like he would buy them in the auctions and then sell them. That's when Craigslist was like, everyone would buy cars and everything on Craigslist. So like that's when I started driving myself to school in high school, and I would have like different cars and stuff that he was selling. So yeah, I didn't, but yeah, like you said, the independence is what I looked up to, like the mom on Rugrats too, like that one, Angelica's mom, it was, I think.
Oh yeah, because she had like a Mercedes.
Yeah.
I think she was like a
She was like
Samantha.
a boss chick. Yeah, she's like a Samantha. Yeah, she's like a boss
I don't
chick.
remember. Angelica did not have a dad that was at home with her. It was just the mom, I thought.
I think so.
Were there any adults that you idolized as a kid?
Idolize? No, not really. Like women? I used to like Cher. You know what? I used to love Cher. I had the Cher CD. So I would like sing Cher. I'd be like, Dad, sit down and watch me sing. And then like I would sing the Cher songs or like, but it was, other than that, it was a lot of like boy bands and like, and Spice Girls. That was like, I looked up to the Spice Girls. Yeah, I think those are like the women I, grew up.
I love.
Yeah. What about you?
Adults that I idolized at that age, for me, I think it was just more like the people around me. I mean, my cousins were all older than me. So, and my siblings, obviously, but I idolized them all because I just wanted to go hang out.
Yeah.
I think I've always been destined to be a little bit of a partier person. And then as I got older and realized that life is just, it's hardcore. So, so essentially all of the adults that were around me, I was like, I just want to be them and do everything that they're doing when I grow up. But not understanding that, I think not understanding the inner rebel too, right? Like a lot of the people around us and the adults do what they do because they're just like, I'm so tired of being underneath my parents' thumb.
Yeah.
Because parents are overprotective, and so.
What was your experience of like overprotectiveness? And then I'll speak on mine. And like growing up in Oakland, and back then, that's when gangs were like, I feel like gang shit was like heavy because there was not a lot of cameras and phones, and like you could actually freaking get away with things easier versus now. So what was that like?
So I mean, essentially it was like, you can go out and play, but get your ass in the house before the street lights come on was a lot of it. And then my mom and parents always being clear and understanding of who every person I was hanging out with or on the phone with or being around. And my dad essentially like, y'all can't do nothing. Like, like anything that pertained to us leaving the house or going to the movies or doing anything, he was just like not about it. Which I understand now is just because it's like, it was just too much going on. Like kids being kidnapped, which is always still a thing. And, people being weird, which is still a thing as well. But mostly just like, I just want my kids to be at home. And if I know they're at home, I know they're safe. There was an incident when I was a kid where, or a couple of times, a couple of different kids got shot on the street that I lived on, not too far from my house, like literally within like a couple of feet of walking distance on each end. They used to do sideshows and donuts right at my corner.
Yeah.
On both ends. So, it just, I think when we talk about just overprotectiveness, it was just more so like, if y'all in the house and I know y'all good, and I just need to know where y'all at all the time, every day, and at all times. So
yeah,
there was that. And then once I became like a teenager, it was even worse because I'm pretty sure my dad knew I was hot in the ass and I was trying to get out there and see what was hot. I'm like, I'm trying to see
the world. I'm trying to throw it back.
Yes.
Who's gonna catch it? I think for me, like as like a Latina, a female, I think my dad was very protective of me, very like on my ass. Like it was like that, but then again, like I would be staying at my aunt's house like for long periods of time with my cousins, but that was because he knew like she would like keep me safe and stuff like that. And I think, or like staying with my grandma and things like that. So yeah. And then I think as I got older, like a teenager, then it was more like my dad was kind of straight out with me of like, hey, guys are going to tell you like whatever you want to hear. Like, and by that point, I was already like,
she's like, I don't give a fuck. I'm trying to hear it.
Like, let's go.
Right. Like, I want to hear what they got to say. Please.
Sneaking my flip phone under the blanket, talking at night.
God, girl.
If you're listening, sorry.
I feel like, but this, I feel like when we have our episode about nostalgia, like this is like a good point, right?
Yeah.
Like just things, because when you talk about like pop culture in the movies, like Clueless. I mean, Lil' Kim was out around that time. Trina. All they used to talk about was just like, having
Missy
the side
Elliott. Yeah.
phone, Missy Elliott, like, having some side pieces, doing all the things. And I just think that, if we're talking about idolization, I think that what I idolized about those people was their sense of independence and, how they made it clear, like, just hurt these motherfuckers' feelings. And
And be
I
free.
and
Like
be
they were
free.
free. Like they would wear more revealing outfits. And,
Yeah. Yeah. So I think the other piece is just thinking about like I think we've talked a little bit about like what made it magical for us and what we saw and kind of what we just thought was like, some things that stood out to us. But now I guess looking at adulthood and looking at just some solutions, what were some problems that stood out for us that we now know and solutions that we've created for some of those issues?
I would say like the first thing that comes to my mind in my situation, like my experience growing up, I feel like it was more old school to believe that you had to stay in like a marriage or like in keep your family together, or else it was like, frowned upon, or it just, divorces didn't really happen back then. Like that wasn't really like an option or like a thing back then.
100%. I want to piggyback off of that and just also say like just the overall concept of marriage at that point in time was marriage and having children and then building a family was completely different than it is now. The thought was that, you stick through your partner through anything. You guys make sure that you figure out a way to continue to move forward and all the things. But at what point do we start to think about ourselves in these relationships or the things that we're going through in these relationships in order to continue to be able to move them forward, right? And I think that's a foreign concept with people nowadays. Or not nowadays, I'm sorry, then and versus what's happening nowadays.
Yeah, I think another one too, it just slipped my mind. I think another one too is like not talking about certain things. Or like,
yes.
Like, hey, like, oh, you don't talk about these things, or this stays here and this, like, and I think now things are much more like spoken about and more open, and like, you're empowered to speak on your experiences or whatever. Just, I think that has changed a lot as well. And I think, it's great. I think it's great.
I would agree.
It's a solution to a lot of things.
Well, and I also think open-mindedness is a solution to a lot of things as well, and which could help a lot of people in the perspectives that everybody has, essentially. So moving and switching gears, right? So I think like the stark contrast between childhood dreams and adult realities are just where we were then, where we are now, different financial pressures and societal expectations of what we should be doing and how we should be as adults. I think these conversations happen consistently, especially generational wise, because for whatever reason, there's a lot of hate on the millennials, which I think which frustrates me. It truly frustrates me when people be like, you millennials, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, I think that people don't realize the broad spectrum in which millennials lie and how far into the 2000s millennials lie. And we're not all the same when it comes to the millennials. So that's one thing. But just thinking about where we are today, which I think we've talked a little bit about, but what's been like, why is adulthood so overwhelming these days? What do you think?
Where do we begin?
I mean,
I think because I think I think so
Say
to
it.
me. So to me, it's like, first of all, everything's expensive as fuck.
Say that.
Second of all, I think like when you're exposed to so much and you're hyper aware and you're like educated and like you catch on to things, like it takes a toll on you. Like it's good, but it's also like it's bitter. It's a double-edged sword because you're like, it's good, but then you're so like hyper aware of things and you're like, it's stressful. And then I think also like the roles as women and men, like as a straight woman, like it's different now. Back then, a lot of women could stay at home, or like it was like single income households could survive, and now that's like not really a thing. It's very
Agreed.
difficult.
I
Yeah.
agree with you. Yes. I
And now,
100%
and
agree
honestly,
with
I
you.
don't want to say it, but like men be getting so zesty now.
I think men has always been zesty.
Yeah, but they're just more open with it. And I just be like, I can't do
But
it.
that's good. I feel like show me who you are up front.
Yeah.
Like why don't hide it? Let's see it. Pull it
Yeah.
out. Let me see right now. I want to see. I want to show me who you are up front. So then that gives you a decision to decide if that's really what you want to deal with for however long time you want to deal with it.
Yeah.
Because I was about to say something toxic and I'm not going to
Say it. No, say it. You made me say it.
I just feel like I get so frustrated because I feel like stop presenting your representative, which my faves, they talk about this all the time. Don't bring up your representative and, show who you are up front. So then that way it gives people the opportunity to decide if they want to fuck with you or not. If you zesty, you got a little sass behind your tone and your attitude, that's great. Show that off and let's be who you is. Like, that's fine. Like, you quick on your feet. That's great. You got some different specific ideals of what you feel like a woman should be in a relationship or your partner should be in a relationship. That's great. Let's hear all of that. Let us know right now. So then we can decide if that's who we want to, if they want to fuck with you or not. And then when you do that, you can't be upset if they don't. Want to fuck with you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you feel like adulthood is harder now than it was in our previous generations that we've saw?
I don't think so.
Me neither.
I don't think so. I think it's like the same. And I think honestly, like now we even have more resources for things. I feel like, back then, like, well, at least nobody in my family, like therapy wasn't a thing. Mental health wasn't really something we spoke about or like, got help for anything like that. And I think now we have access to those things, which is super beneficial, So it kind of helps with adulthood.
I agree with that. How much of our disappointment is due to unrealistic expectations we had as kids? And disappointment meaning our disappointment in adulthood.
I don't think it's fair to say like it is, and it's not fair to say a child has unrealistic expectations because you're young and you're just like, you're naive and you don't really know. So you're just going based seeing on what you see on TV or like what your friends, what their experiences or whatever. So yeah, so I guess, so yeah, I would say half of it, I would say like 50-50. Half is like unrealistic and then half of it is like, what was the exact words that you said?
How much of our disappointment in adulthood is unrealistic is due to unrealistic expectations we had as kids?
Yeah, I think like half of it is, it's like half and half. Like I could have also not been such an asshole when I was younger, and like listened to my parents and like not ditched and like listened and did what I was supposed to do.
Yeah,
but I didn't. So I had to learn the hard way. So I'd say it's half and half. I can't, I have to take accountability for myself too,
I get that.
What about you?
I think that so my mom was always very clear and always very blunt, open, and honest about most all things. My dad would have preferred us be a little bit more coddled and a little bit more sheltered. So I think that in terms of my disappointment of being an adult really would come from mostly just the idea that mostly just revolving around like just how to be financially stable. I just don't think that, there was ever a real conversation about how to be in a financially stable place ever in our family.
Yeah.
So really the financial piece is really big for me because it's something that doesn't continue to come up, not now, but it was, and sometimes still for some family members around me, that I wish that they were just like, you have to put money away, you have to save, you have to do this and the third, put yourself in a predicament to where you're not overspending for certain things. I guess when we're talking about unrealistic expectations, it was the unrealistic expectation that you'll financially be able to do any and everything at every moment, because that was not the case.
Yeah, I think also, like, I feel like when we were graduating high school or like in high school, college and university was such a thing, which is good and it's bad because it's so expensive and loans. Like you're barely turning 18, you're a teenager, you don't know the negative sides of getting such a big student loan or what you're really getting yourself into or your parents into, because at that age your parents usually have to co-sign. So I think that is like a thing too, of like learning what a trade is. Like now kids are like getting educated on what a trade is and like how you can make money on trade and hands-on work,
Yeah, 100% I agree.
Yeah.
Go ahead. What were we going to say?
I was going to say, because right now, like a lot of companies have shortage of plumbers and HVAC technicians and all kinds of things, because our generation was so like college, office, that, like not everybody is aware that, bro, you can make money on these things. Like, yeah, you're going to get dirty and stuff, but you're going to make a lot of money if you're eager for it.
Yeah, it's like the opportunity to chase after the things that you want to chase after, right? Or the different opportunities that are there in order to be able to move forward in your career and our life, right? So yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Let's take a small break and then we'll be back to wrap up this discussion. And we are back. So to wrap this up and to just, kind of close out the conversation. So in all the things that we've been talking about, we've talked a lot about like what we saw as kids and the adults around us and social media and, pop culture and TV shows and etc. Why do you think now as adults, why do you romanticize being a child or going back to childhood?
Because I didn't have to pay bills.
Right? Like a number of things.
I think that was number one. Number two was that I didn't have the responsibility of like taking care of other people's like entire life, Like I babysat at a really young age, but like I didn't have the responsibility of like 2 mouths to feed or put a roof over 2 heads and, that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the fun aspect, like I just had more fun as a kid and like there's a lightness to it, like imagination and like just fun.
Yeah.
So I think for
Yeah.
me, that's what it is.
Yes, I do agree with the fun and the freeness as a kid. Just being and doing kind of whatever I wanted to be, who I wanted to be at any given moment, and no expectations that I didn't have any expectations to do except for get good grades, be respectful, and and that was it.
Yeah.
If social media did not become a thing, I think that we could have all been different as kids. But also, I guess social media didn't really start for me until I became like 15. But even before then, though, things like, the chat lines and all that shit was a thing. And so, but anyway, yeah, those are the things that I think, just being a kid and doing all the things and no expectations were great. How much of how do you longing for youth and, the escapism that comes with that? Like, do you use it to like think about the escaping of responsibilities, or when your ideas and thoughts about nostalgia, does it help you with escaping like things that are going on in your adult life?
Not really. Like,
Mm-hmm.
not really. You know what? Now that, because I'm, as a mom and stuff,
Mm-hmm.
I think those things now, like, I try to use it to like connect with my kids, I guess, or like,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
certain things that I liked or that I felt like I should know as a kid or whatever. Like now I'm like, well, I'm going to do that with my kid, or like painting with Amaya, or like coloring with her, or like playing teacher, Starbucks, like stuff like that, like,
Mm-hmm.
so I kind of use it for that,
Mm-hmm.
because adults, when I was growing up, is more like work and like stress and everything. So I try to be as best as I can, like an adult that plays and like
Mm-hmm.
speaks, affirmations and things like that into my kids.
Absolutely.
I'm still strict though. That's
I
has
know
to
that's
be.
right, girl. We ain't got time.
Right. What about for you?
I think for me, when I think about my youth, I think more just in terms of just like, it was fun being a kid. I think more in terms of music and like, where music has become now, and just like the artists that were out then and versus the artists that are out now, and the consistencies of just all the different music and the acceptingness of just the industry then is very different now. And then when we think just outside of that area, of just like people are just so hell bent on making sure we're labeling everybody and putting everybody in a box and putting everybody in a category. Whereas, at the time when I was a kid, it wasn't like that. So I kind of miss that,
Yeah.
just being who you want to be and just kind of living your life at that point.
Yeah.
So just thinking in terms of like history repeating itself, do you think we're creating a cycle for kids nowadays where they have even more skewed perceptions of what it is like to be an adult?
I think it depends. Like me personally, like I am very like raw, like blunt with my kids. Like
Mm-hmm.
my son and stuff. I'll be like, "You want this, and that? Like it costs money." And I try to explain to him in a way like, "Hey, you want this? I had to work like
Mm-hmm.
6 hours to get you this, or like I
Mm-hmm.
had to do this to get you this." Like so. Then he understands. Like, damn, okay, because it's not even just about the money. It's
Mm-hmm.
about like it takes time for me to work like 8 hours, 10 hours, whatever. Like it's not just, oh, here, like, you know what I mean? Like and
Mm-hmm.
so he understands like what work is, and like I have
Mm-hmm.
a boss and I have to
Mm-hmm.
report to a boss, and like,
Mm-hmm.
just understand like it's not just like shits and giggles, you know?
Right. Like life isn't just like mommy's not pulling it out of her ass.
Right.
Today,
Right.
you know?
So
Like it's not that
enjoy,
easy.
yeah, enjoy what you have, because then when you're an adult, then this is, you know, like essentially what it is.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
agree. For me, I think that I don't think we as people intentionally, or no, I'm sorry, us, the two, and then the people around me, no, we don't intentionally make sure, we don't do that. But I do think, with kids having access to phones and cell phones and the internet and, watching different types of movies and things like that gives them a skewed perspective of what adulthood is. And I do think that it's kind of how history repeats itself, because we said at the beginning that we've watched movies where, specific people or specific movies showed us that life can be a specific way, but only to now have lived in a little bit and been through some things. And as adults, that is not all like that.
Yeah.
And, it's not our fault. I don't think it's our fault. I think it's just
We're literally
society
never
is.
the problem.
I'm like,
so weird.
It's so weird. I don't know what everybody's saying, but I don't know. I think everybody has their part that they play in the perception that kids see, how kids see us. Right. I also think sometimes, even me, I don't always like to be super raw and blunt with kids, but Paris is like that. He's like, they need to know that it's not easy. It's not, it's not rainbows and butterflies all the time. So, and they should know that. And that's exactly how my mom was. And so it's interesting that I'm kind of the opposite when it comes to certain things. So,
Yeah.
I think everybody plays a part, and it can go both ways. Ultimately.
Yeah, I think having a good balance of both is important.
Yeah, yes, I agree.
Like, they're still kids. Let them be kids as long as they can. Yeah. So, like, I have a funny story.
Yes, please share.
I have a feeling this will get clipped.
I'm sure it will.
So yesterday I don't know what I was watching, and then they said vagina. No, Saturday I was at my dad's house. We were all watching a movie, and the movie said vagina. And Junior he's like, I know what a vagina is. And I was like, okay. And I didn't know what to say. So I was like, well, what do you think that is? And he's like, butt, a girl's butt. And so I was like, I started laughing, but I didn't like laugh too crazy because I didn't want to like laugh at him,
Right.
So I just like giggled, and I was like, fuck, like, what do I say? So then I was like, well, and I was in front of my dad. And I was like, well, I was like, kind of. I was like, but it's actually, like you have a wiener. I was like, girls have a vagina. And we just.
What did he say?
And then he's like, so then later on we were talking, and then he's like, so the vagina's not a butt. And I was like, oh my God. I was like, no. But it was just so like, my God, I wanted to curl into a ball, like, in front of my dad. And I was like, oh my God.
So what did your dad say? Did he say anything, or did he have a face?
No, he just laughed. He's like, well, this was a great family discussion.
I mean, it
was funny.
It's bound to happen at some point, right? Like, it's better you tell him than him going to school and somebody telling him something completely different.
Yeah.
Or using other terms that, you probably would be even more groped if he came home using.
And I don't want him to feel stupid, like at school, like, oh, all these kids know, and he doesn't know. You know what I mean? Like, it's better he asks me versus like, yeah.
Yeah.
But I've been having those moments a lot lately now that he's getting older.
They gonna just keep coming. That's the funny part.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think we could take a final break. I think this was a great conversation just to kind of talk about adulthood versus when we were children, and just kind of take a look into kind of what that was like, and like and just, to kind of recap that kind of growing up experience. So let's take our last break and we'll come back and we'll wrap up the show. Bye.
Bye.
Hey, y'all. If you like what you heard, make sure you join the conversation. We always say to make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and we definitely want you to do that. But also, we would love if you would join in with us. There's a link in the description where you can actually send us messages. You can also make sure to tag us on social media, put up your favorite clips of the show, and then tag us, and we will repost them on our stories. That is the best way to get in communication or community with us, and we would love to see y'all interact with the content. Anyway, thank you for following us, and thank you for listening, and we'll see you back for the remainder of the show. Bye. All right, everyone, and we're back. Thank you for sitting here and listen to the things that we chatted about. I wanted to close it with a little affirmation, and just, I think with today being the inauguration, I just want to talk about like protecting your peace and how important that is. 2025, I think 2025 and the next 4 years on forward is probably just going to be very important to protect your peace and put up any guardrails that you need and boundaries. So, protecting your energy, set boundaries unapologetically, and remember that you do not have to explain your piece to anyone. Making sure to prioritize your well-being and watch your light shine brighter than ever when doing that, because it's about to be it's going to be a bumpy road. And the first year usually is the bumpiest. So, do what you got to do to protect yourself and your peace. Set those boundaries because it's important. Any final thoughts on that?
I think boundaries are just so important. They're hard to place sometimes, but there's so many things you can search online. Like if you don't know how to like verbalize a boundary to somebody or explain that to somebody, like look it up. There's so many resources now and they're very good tools to use.
Yeah.
Because not everybody grows up knowing how to like say no or how to say like this is where it stops, or whatever. And you can search up how to word it and something that best suits you.
Yeah. Agreed. Well, with that being said, thank you for listening to this week's episode. We hope that y'all are out there being safe and not drinking and driving. And we hope that you are enjoying whatever you need to take care of yourselves and your friends and families. You want to tell them where they can find and follow us?
Yeah. Also, just remember that you have rights. And you don't have to say anything. You have your Miranda rights. You can always request to speak to an attorney if you're an immigrant or anything like that. So just throwing that out there. But yes, you can follow us on Patreon for $8 a month, which is, visual and audio content from current and past episodes, live events, and things like that. Instagram, live up-to-dates, live behind the scenes, and clips from our visual episodes. And Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, YouTube, and iHeartRadio has all of our audio streaming on there. So whichever platform, all platforms, whatever you choose, just make sure you like and subscribe, please. And thank you.
Yes. And we hope you all have a good rest of your week and or weekend. And we will catch you all in the next episode. Bye.